Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I am going to be doing the Bookish Witch Tag. This tag was originally created by Claire from Rousseau as part of her amazing Claire Witch project. I will never get tired of that name. And I am a witchy person. I love witches and everything to do with magic, so of course I'm going to be doing this tag. And without further ado, let's get started. Hop on your broomstick and pick a favorite witchy setting. This is actually a pretty easy question to answer. I love witchy settings that deal with very dark and mysterious sort of atmosphere. For example, in Catherine Arden's The Bear and the Nightingale, I love that dark, mystifying feeling of, you know, something old battling against something new, new belief systems clashing, and sort of the old gods and the new god, you know, and new myths battling it out, and the witch character kind of having to navigate that kind of conflict. That is my favorite type of a setting, and I think it has to do with culture too, because in Finland we have archived, you know, use of magic and, you know, witchcraft as a legitimate way to do things up until the 1960s and 1970s. It was a way of life here, and it went hand in hand with people's Christian beliefs. Their pagan beliefs weren't in conflict with their Christian beliefs. And I grew up with my mom telling stories about my grandma being a hedge witch and people coming to her for remedies and for spells. And that sort of thing has always fascinated me, and I think that that's why the sort of setting in Catherine Arden's The Bear and the Nightingale just calls to me on a deep personal level. Whip out your wand and choose a favorite magic system. Of course, my favorite magic system is actually in Megan Lindholm's Wizard of the Pigeons. And I still haven't finished this book. I'm working on it right now, but the magic system in this book is wonderful. Basically, all wizards and witches are homeless people. Not all homeless people are wizards and witches, but basically the use of magic is such that it requires a huge sacrifice on the part of the user, and every bit of magic has a give and take, and the witches and wizards here tend to be homeless because of that give and take, and they are sort of in a flux constantly. And this is all about like memories becoming manifest in reality, and there's this one character who collects children's like rhymes and uses those as her source of power, because those types of rhymes that are in the community and in the public knowledge and are repeated over and over, they end up becoming more powerful over time, and she collects these children's rhymes and uses them as the source of her power, and I think that that is amazing. And there's also like the main character wizard has basically perfected his kind of grifter slash homeless person skills, and that's his magic. He can persuade people to give him meals, and he can always find shelter and stuff like that, and that's his magic. He sort of whips things out of nowhere, but they come at a price. And I think that this is such an interesting concept for like magic working in the everyday like how magic works in the everyday urban system. And I highly recommend this book. Like, sure, I haven't finished it completely yet, but unless the ending completely craps out, this is probably gonna be one of my favorite books of the year. And I keep thinking about it, and I keep thinking about the magic system especially. So I think, you know, it's gonna be something that sticks in my mind for a long time, and it is definitely one of my favorite magic systems. Gather up your magical herbs and occult ingredients and pick some favorite tropes from witch stories. My favorite tropes from witch stories tend to be the subversions of certain tropes. For example, the evil hag gets subverted, and the person is accused of being evil, but then it turns out that there's something more to that situation. For example, in John Gwynne's Malice, there is this character who is basically a hedge witch, and people keep gossiping about her and saying that she is not a good person and she's evil and stuff. And then the main character becomes her apprentice, and it turns out that this witch character is a good person. She's just pragmatic and a realist and doesn't really go out of her way to acquaint people. And because she is kind of withdrawn, people make assumptions about her. And those types of tropes I really like. I like the there's more than meets the eye sort of trope, and I also love the kinds of tropes of witches coming to their power. For example, in Uprooted by Naomi Novik, I really love that aspect of the story where Agnieszka figures out how to do magic and what's the source of her power and how her power works. That is very much my cup of tea. Open up your grimoire and pick a book of magic to help in your casting. Speaking of Uprooted, I think my favorite grimoire, favorite spellbook comes from Uprooted. And that is the notebook of Baba Yaga that Agnieszka finds in the dragon's tower, and which she uses then to learn magic from. And that's just a battered, old, moldy, dusty notebook tucked away in the library beside all these beautiful, elaborate tomes and leather-bound grimoires. And there's something so quaint and fascinating about it that the person who owned that grimoire and made it their own spellbook basically just scrapbooked her way into the most powerful spells, and just used what was on hand. And there are bits where there's been like stuff added to the notebook, and like torn pages and pages glued in and stuff, and it's just wonderful. I like that sort of like, this is something that anybody could make. This and it's a reflection of the type of power that Agnieszka finds in it, that sort of homely power, power that comes from within and from the nature and from things around you. And I think that it fits that it's just this mangy old notebook that she just finds, and that isn't anything special, and I love that. Stir that bubbling cauldron and choose a witchy brew and or wizardy snack. I like coffee, and I especially love lattes with sort of like cardamom and cloves and stuff, very spicy, like coffee drinks. And I will say that any decent magic caster will probably need lots of coffee in their life in order to stay awake while they do their unholy magic, you know. And yeah, coffee is my go-to magical beverage. It keeps me sane, and it makes me go around the clock, and I can't start my day without a cup of coffee, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. Summon your familiar. Either show us your actual familiar and give them some scritches behind the ears, or tell us about your favorite fictional animal. For this question, I'm actually going to do both. I am first going to tell you about my favorite fictional animal, and that is Salem from the original sitcom version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Salem was everything to me when I was in middle school and high school. He was sarcastic, he was amazingly funny, and I loved that, and I was always curious to know what he looked like as a human being. There are so many Salem fan arts tucked away in my oldest folder somewhere that I drew that you wouldn't even believe. But I will also show you my own familiars because I have two and I will always flaunt them. This here is Tesla. He is a rescue cat and he is named after Nikola Tesla. He is the most jovial and friendly cat you will ever meet. And he would be terrible during a robbery because, you know, he's so friendly that he just likes every person on Earth. He's also very fond of food and will start to meow during the night if you don't give him any. And sometimes it's a little annoying. This is Hedda. She is not friendly or jovial. She basically lurks in caves and only really likes one person at a time. She doesn't like to be held. She will allow scritches and back pets sometimes, but mostly she just wants to be left alone in peace. And of course I will be tagging people because I feel like the people I'm going to tag, all of them have a certain type of witchy vibe and a certain witchy aura that I really love about them, and I feel like their answers to these questions would be really interesting. First up, I'm going to be tagging Jenna from Bibliophiles. I feel like you would do so well with this tag. The next person I'm going to be tagging is Judith from Dead Good Book Reviews. She's a fairly new booktuber, so go give her some love. Then I'm going to be tagging Carrie the Book Bell. Carrie is very much all about the zodiac and astrology and stuff, so I think she would also be very interested in a witchy tag. Then I'm going to be tagging Leah Cooper because Leah has a witchy aesthetic. Just her overall look is very witchy and I love that about her. Then I'm going to be tagging Noria Reads because I think that she will have interesting and fun answers to this tag. And the T-Hags, obviously, because it's in the name, and I just want to see both of their answers to these questions. And finally, I'm going to be tagging Jessie from Bowties and Books. I think they have an amazing personality, and I think they recently did a video where they had a witch's hat on, and I just thought that, okay, that's enough of a witchy vibe for me to be tagging them in this tag. And there you have it. This has been the Bookish Witch Tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up and give some love to all the people that I've linked down in the description. I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye bye!